No matter where you travel in Illinois, historic bridges are part of the landscape. These quiet monuments to transportation and engineering history are a link to the past that both visitors and residents can enjoy. In March 1826, Thomas Beard wrote to his father, "I have settled on the east bank of the Illinois River on public land 120 miles above St. Louis. My reason for choosing this location is on account of its being a valuable site for a town and a ferry. Six years prior, in 1820, Thomas Beard found himself just below the confluence of the Sangamon and Illinois rivers. Beard was accompanied by Enoch C. March, whom he'd met in Edwardsville, Illinois, after leaving his family home in 1818. March would return to Edwardsville, but Beard remained as a squatter on land that had recently been ceded to the United States government by the Peoria, Kaskaskia, Mishigamia, Cahokia, and Tamaroa tribes in 1818. These native nations later confederated into what is today the Peoria Tribe of Indians of Oklahoma, headquartered in Miami, Oklahoma. Beard established a settlement and eventually a village, but did not acquire a deed for land until 1826. Beardstown, from its modest beginnings, was well positioned for growth. Not only was it near the rivers, it was also located among the fertile prairies of Illinois. By the 1830s, Beardstown was flourishing. River traffic brought goods from St. Louis and New Orleans to be distributed to the interior of Illinois. In turn, those towns receiving their supplies from the river would ship their goods and wares through Beardstown. The rise of the railroad in Illinois in the late 1860s and early 70s further expanded and enhanced Beardstown's reach. Both the Rockford, Rock Island, and St. Louis, and the Pana, Springfield, and Northwestern railroads would connect the city to rail networks, allowing for access to St. Louis, Chicago, and beyond. The Rockford, Rock Island, and St. Louis Railroad even built the rail bridge across the Illinois River at Beardstown, as well as a complex of shops and a railway roundhouse. With these additional amenities, Beardstown became a changing hub for rail crews and passengers. Hundreds of railroad workers lived in the city with their families, and newly arrived passengers with layovers would frequent local shops and hotels. By the 1880s, Beardstown boasted a brewery, agricultural machinery dealers, flour mills, sawmills, grain elevators, blacksmith shops, drugstores, and a whopping 11 groceries. As railroads and technology advanced, though, transportation for both people and goods became more accessible. As a result, other depot cities such as Chicago and St. Louis grew and eventually surpassed Beardstown in prominence. Beardstown's location on the Illinois River also made it an ideal place to cross, further contributing to its early growth in the 19th century. Settlers were moving westward through the newly formed state, and the need for a ferry arose. In June 1826, Thomas Beard obtained a license for a ferry service from Schuyler County for $6 a year. Beard passed away in 1849, but the ferry continued operation under various owners. The ferry was the primary means of crossing the Illinois River until Beardstown's first bridge was built in 1888. With this construction, Beardstown had the only bridge crossing on the Illinois River for about 70 miles to the north and about 30 miles to the south. This unique position funneled both people and trade through the city. It wasn't until 1925 that additional crossings were added at Havana, about 30 miles to the north, and at Meredosia, about 20 miles to the south. Beardstown's first bridge was built of wood and operated as a toll bridge. After only a decade of heavy use, the wooden structure was beyond repair and required replacement. A replacement bridge was constructed of steel and had 5 mixed spans. 3 fixed Pennsylvania through truss spans on the Beardstown side, a swing span, and 1 fixed Pratt through truss span on the north end into Schuyler County. Despite the structural improvements made over its wooden predecessor, the new steel bridge also had issues, primarily its lack of clearance above the river. Throughout its history, Beardstown often dealt with flooding which rendered the bridge impassable. A major flood in 1926 set a record high water level of 26.3 feet. Hoping to prevent future flooding within Beardstown, a 27.75-foot flood wall was constructed in 1928. Although it is unclear exactly how high the second bridge was above the river, a report from the Taylorville Daily Breeze Courier made during the 1926 flood described the Illinois River at a new high level, lapping the floorboards of the wagon bridge. The article noted the river's peak level at the time was 22.6 feet. In 1943, floodwaters came again. The river rose at a rate of an inch an hour, prompting evacuations. Remaining Beardstown residents and soldiers from nearby Camp Ellis worked together to raise the flood wall an additional 3 feet. Ultimately, the river crested at 27.8 feet, the wall held, and Beardstown wasn't flooded. In addition to flooding, the 1898 bridge also experienced frequent closures due to collisions with towboats and barges. Notable incidents in the 40s and 50s included swingspan and pier collisions that put the crossing out of commission, resulting in multiple week closures to automobile traffic. The deficiencies of Beardstown's second bridge hadn't gone unnoticed, though. In 1950, the Illinois Highway Department began considering proposals concerning the bridge's replacement. The governor, Adlai Stevenson II, stated that the Beardstown Bridge would be a priority when funds became available. In the spring of the following year, the recent implementation of gas taxes and truck licensing fees created a substantial influx of revenue for the Highway Department. This additional revenue funded the bridge project, and planning was able to progress. Construction of Beardstown's third bridge started in the spring of 1952, though later than anticipated due to high water. High steel prices and low availability caused by a production strike meant further delays. By 1954, though, all necessary contracts had been secured, and the initial 3-year construction timeline would ultimately be met. The current Beardstown Bridge opened in 1955 and is located on Highway 67, just downriver from the 1898 structure. That same year, the Illinoisan Star called US 67 a Grand Trunk wide highway, extending from the northern to southern ends of the state. The bridge construction was part of a statewide project to remove traffic impediments along that route. In an era of increasing recreational travel on highways, the citizens of Beardstown viewed the new bridge as an opportunity to enhance the city's profile and attract visitors. The Beardstown Bridge is 3,624 feet long and is made up of 5 worn-through trusses and 12 approach spans that provide 2 13-foot traffic lanes and accompanying sidewalks. It is a notable example of a late-period cantilever bridge that illustrates the advancement of structural engineering and design in Illinois. At 48 feet above the river's high water mark, the bridge's traffic deck is significantly higher than that of its predecessor, which greatly improved the regional transportation network by reducing risks posed by the river's fluctuating levels. Situated on a major U.S. highway and connecting several major state routes, the third Beardstown Bridge accommodated both through traffic and vehicles entering the community. Beardstown and the surrounding communities celebrated the opening of this third iteration of the bridge with day-long festivities on September 13, 1955. Some motorists were so excited to see the completed structure that they arrived the Sunday before the official opening and bypassed barricades just to drive across it. Despite 30 years of reliable service, some components of the bridge began deteriorating by the early 1980s. Chief among them were the steel open grate deck and its steel beam and stringer supports. Rust and corrosion from winter roadway salting had taken its toll. Repair planning was underway in 1984. Repairs and the installation of a new concrete road deck were completed ahead of schedule in August 1985. During the 84-85 construction, numerous local businesses were concerned that they wouldn't be able to remain open for the projected 11-month construction period. As well, the 11-mile trip from Rushville to Beardstown was a 45-mile trip by way of the Meridosha Bridge that hundreds of Rushville residents working in Beardstown made 2 times a day. In the end, Beardstown merchants reported a 10 to 50% loss in sales. However, with construction being completed ahead of schedule in August, area farmers were still able to get crops to market that fall. In 2014, 30 years after the deck rebuilding, the third bridge was reassessed by IDOT and classified as structurally deficient. A 15-ton weight limit was imposed on the bridge, impacting area farmers and businesses by sending trucks and equipment to alternate crossings. Due to safety concerns, plans have been developed to replace it. Following consultation with the State Historic Preservation Office, it was concluded that the Beardstown Bridge and crossing are of cultural significance due to the role they played in both local and regional history. Because the current bridge must be replaced, it was determined that video documentation would preserve its importance. Currently, repairs are being made to the existing bridge to avoid weight limitations and traffic backup while the new bridge is being built. As of November 2025, details of the new bridge and associated construction are still forthcoming. When Thomas Beard and Enoch C. March ventured to the confluence in the early 1800s, Illinois had only just become a state. Transportation infrastructure was non-existent in what would become Cass County. Instead, they likely traveled along the river, streams, and across the prairie. Today, the same as in 1955, 1898, and 1888, the river crossing at Beardstown is an integral part of the community and local economy. Modern transportation needs place a variety of demands on infrastructure. A delicate balance is required when seeking to preserve historically significant structures and maintaining safe transportation and shipping corridors. Though it's not practical to save every historic bridge, it is possible to document them so that their importance can remain part of our state's story for generations to come.